This is huge. Literally, because the Toronto Raptors are linked to 7'4" prospect Zack Edey, who's been dominating college basketball, and a lot of Raptors fans are familiar with this name, as obviously he's a Canadian prospect that's played on the national team for multiple years, and is a guy that's intrigued a lot of Toronto Raptors fans, especially during the years where we didn't have a center. So we're going to break down who Zack Edey is, how he's being linked to the Toronto Raptors as a potential draft candidate, and what impact he can have on this team. And a little note, he plays tonight in his first game in March Madness. Purdue faces off, so make sure to check out that game. But let's dive into what's going on here with Zack Edey, because this man has taken his game to the next level this season. As I've mentioned, he's been a name that's been linked to the Toronto Raptors for a fairly long time. But his sort of draft status, where he'll get placed in the NBA's draft, has been a bit confusing because, again, college player of the year past season, and didn't declare for the NBA draft last year. Well, now it seems like it's that time, as basically 2024 NBA draft boards have Zack Edey flying up the draft boards. Basically, the reigning national player of the year, Zack Edey, has been pure dominance this season for Purdue, and the 7'4" center could potentially win back-to-back awards for national player of the year. So what's making him so dominant? Well, the first thing you can look at is just the stats. What's going on here? 24.4 points per game, 12 rebounds a night, 2 assists, 2.2 blocks, and 62% from the field. 24 points on 62% shooting is just another level of madness, is another level of dominance, which is, you can't ignore that. You can't just say, oh, he can't defend the pick and roll, so he's not an NBA level player, because that's sort of the stuff has been brought up regarding Zack Edey for years. Well, you know what? If you're putting in 24 points per game, 12 rebounds on 61% shooting, I don't care what you can guard. I don't care if you can guard a lamppost. You have a spot in the NBA. And frankly, his defense and stuff is a little bit hated on at this point, but I'll dive into that later. But Zack Edey, he's putting up a ridiculous season, similar to what he did last year, but his touch around the rim, things of that he's really developed, are making prospects or scouts view him as a prospect that really should be a mid to late first rounder. And recent mock drafts have him going exactly in the positions where the Toronto Raptors have draft picks. Basically, there's one report here from Bodog, again, one of these betting sites that projects stuff, but Zack Edey is projected to go late first round, early second round of the NBA draft, and the Raptors are currently projected to have the 32nd overall pick. Again, this is from the Detroit Pistons draft selection, so we could potentially be false to that selection fall there, but again, Zack Edey's been shooting up those draft boards, and now recent mock drafts have him going around the area where the Raptors have that Pacers pick. One selection just behind where we're going in terms of this SB Nation sort of draft selection board. So with that Pacers pick, especially if he has a very good tournament, is a realistic landing spot for Zack Edey in the NBA draft. So does it make sense for him to come to the Toronto Raptors? Should we be concerned if we use one of our first round picks on him? Frankly, I don't think so, because I think he's a good prospect that's a little bit underrated now at this point. So to simply put, we haven't seen a player this dominant in college basketball since Zion Williamson in the 2018-2019 season. The difference here is that Edey is a senior and has been dominating for multiple years. Two underrated skills is that the potential first round pick are his impressive footwork down in the paint and phenomenal touch for his size. He has a feathery touch with on his hook shots, and his free throw shooting percentage is a good indicator to back up that he's shooting 76% from the free throw line, which is a ridiculously high percentage for someone of his size. The combination of unreal size and skill has made him a remotely unstoppable on the offensive end. Now, this is something that we kind of knew. We knew this sort of level of production that he was doing in the NCAA level. I've seen people compare him to guys like Luka Garza, big names in NCAA that didn't sort of convert in the NBA. Even like a Boban Marjanovic, who is himself very efficient, very big, but just can't find, or he's a little bit older now, but couldn't find a footing for consistent rotation minutes because of his inability to defend in space and all of that, and whatever. I get those types of criticism, but this guy is dominating at another level, is a level higher at NCAA stage, and he has 4 years of college under his belt, which some people might say, hey, that's a red flag. He's down. Personally, I don't think so, because big men that sort of take the time to develop at that college level where the bright lights aren't on them as high as they be, in the NBA, if there's expectations, select in the first round, right? He's sort of built out his game, refined his skill set to come into the league at a point where he can play, where he can ball. So Offensively, this dude is a monster, is a beast, but there are some concerns, especially on the defensive end. Basically, as of right now, it seems like the 7'4" center is hovering around the late first round, mid second round range, and there's still some valid concerns about his ability to consistently defend the pick and roll against top tier scoring players and his inability to defend in space. If all of this goes well, should serve as a solid big man off the bench that you can give productive 20 minutes a night to. Sure, Edey has his flaws, but the production is so overwhelming that it could lead to him getting drafted higher than anticipated due to the lack of top-tier star talent at the top of this year's NBA draft. The crazy thing about this situation is that the star big man has the option to return to Purdue to play one more season, which would absolutely be phenomenal for the college scene. So, I don't know. I think he's going to go in the NBA draft. If he's projected in the first round, he's played 4 years of college. I think he will end up declaring this year, but again, there's a lot of talk about defending in space, inability to guard the pick and roll. All of that's true. It is what it is. You watch him play, he's not the most fleet of foot guy. Whatever. We've seen guys like Jonas Valanciunas struggle in that area and carve out a really nice niche out there as an offensive big man that can defend at the rim. I mean, he's averaging 2.2 blocks per game, but frankly, I get it. You want this switchable team. The Raptors went 2-3 seasons with a 6'9" sort of vision lineup. Everyone's switching everywhere. The defense is hounding everyone. All that type of stuff. Well, you know what? I've always been a little bit skeptical of this because, again, I get the importance of having a mobile big man and, being able to switch. And the Raptors had some success, especially with Nick Nurse's scheme systems, running those type of defensive sets. Precious Achiuwa being the big man, all that type of stuff. But if you have an offensive talent, if you have a skilled player at the level of a Zack Edey, that is just an automatic bucket for you on the offensive end, shooting over 60% from the field, ridiculous sort of shots, in that paint. You figure out a defensive scheme to use a 7'4" rim protector at the basket that can block a bunch of shots. I don't care how slow he is. I don't care what type of pick and roll sort of sets. Run a decent drop coverage. Figure out a type of zone defense. I don't care. Get creative as an NBA coach. That's what you're paid to do out there at the NBA level, to maximize a skill at the offensive end, to hide some of the flaws from a dude on the defensive end. I don't really understand the point of just completely shadow banning because it doesn't fit the current NBA philosophy. These types of things. And sure, they might get hounded, and there's a large push for these floor spacing mobile bigs and things like that, but there's different ways to play basketball. Not everything has to be, a hard hedge on every sort of pick and roll, a hard screen. That would even work with how big Zack Edey is. If he can just be a wall, almost Andrea Bargnani. Everyone trashes Andrea Bargnani's defense for good reason, but I'm going on a little rant here, but he was one of the most elite screen hedgers in NBA history. I'll stand by that till the day I die. Maybe Zack Edey could do that if they're afraid of him in the pick and roll, but if you just have so much talent, if you just have so much elite ability out there on the offensive end, and it's not like, he's a 6'5" center that's going to have to be guarding people and undersized people. The man is 7'4". Figure it out. Figure it out on the defensive end. Because if he's just not an absolute liability out there, if he's just not getting cooked every single possession and stuff. I mean, the Timberwolves are working with 2 centers in their lineup, and they're one of the best teams in the Western Conference here now at this point. If you can just, and again, Rudy Gobert is a much better defender at this proper center position than Zack Edey ever will be, but you just figure it out. Scheme it out, Darko Rajokovic. You get the talent, you get the players, you work with the group you got, and you find something that works. Because there is an NBA level skill with Zack Edey that could be overwhelmingly great. So, I don't know. I'm on a little rant here. I get the importance of, being able to defend in space, all that type of stuff, but I think it's gone too far in the same direction, one direction, where players that just don't fit the current sort of style of basketball just get shunned out of the league, get roasted by fans that think they're smarter than, NBA basketball players, and things that have been going on for years. Maybe it's the wrong take. Maybe I'm a homer because he's Canadian, but I'd love to have Zack Edey on this team, regardless of defensive mobility and stuff aside. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. You guys are best thing this far. I'm pumped to check out this Purdue game, actually, tonight. I think the Raptors play at the same time, but we'll have both games on. We'll see. But you guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.